And welcome, everybody, to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics and news from a constitutional and conservative perspective. You know, we all focus so much on what's going on at the national level that we often don't pay attention to what's going on in our own backyards. We're going to take an episode to really just focus on the Jason Glass leaving the Kentucky Department of Education. You're going to see a lot of stories surrounding this over the next few days, and you've probably already seen quite a few stories. Things like, how is a replacement found? What is the process for that? Why did they leave? And then why did he leave? And also, as well, Beshear's going to obviously posture himself, as he's already doing, about this pick. So I thought it'd be worthwhile on this Friday to take some time and really look at the Commissioner of Education, Jason Glass, look at the position and just take a deep dive there. But before we get into that, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure you're following along to the show and sharing it with others. Obviously, it's quite an undertaking to make this show every single day. And I know a lot of you find it entertaining, but please share it with others and spread the word so that way everybody can enjoy and stay informed just like you are. Well, Jason Glass this week has announced that he will be leaving the Commissioner of Education position. Commissioner of Education is kind of like the state superintendent of schools. He oversees the Kentucky Department of Education, which promulgates regulations and resources for our K through 12 education around the state. And he's leaving, and he says it's because of Senate Bill 150. Now, Jason Glass hasn't been exactly quiet about his far-left attitudes. As I mentioned in prior podcasts, it was under Jason Glass that things like sharing, keeping from parents, students' preferred pronouns, as well as he had a real big controversy when it came to forcing teachers to use pronouns from students. If you may remember from a time of teacher shortage, Jason Glass looked at a bunch of teachers that were having issues with this pronoun problem. And part of the reason why, or not part of the reason why, and you do make a claim here, a religious claim here, because if you're a Christian, the belief that somebody can change their gender is pretty scanty. I know Beshear and other Democrats like to somehow claim that God made them that way, so that excuses the behavior, ignoring the fact that if you proclaim to be a Christian, that means that we recognize it's not that God made us this way. We made ourselves this way. We've fallen from the grace of God with the original sin. And because of that, because of humans that way, we are born with all sets of different temptations and desires and issues. You can call them, some people have addicted personalities. Some people are dealing with different sexual proclivities, whether that's, sex addiction, as some people call it. Or in this case, some people think that they're born in the wrong skin or what have you. And what being a Christian teaches us is that just because you simply were born with the desire to do something doesn't mean it's right. It also teaches us that a man shall not dress as a woman and a woman shall not dress as a man. That is pretty clearly stated in the Bible. There is no means for interpretation there. It literally says in Deuteronomy 22:5, a woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing, for the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. That's the NIV version of Deuteronomy 22:5. Now, for those of you who are not religious, you may hear that and say, what's that got to do with policy? Well, while you may not agree, and this is where a weird intersection happens. See, freedom of religion means that you have the ability to practice it. If you'll remember on the show, there was a story about a woman being asked to remove a hijab in front of men by our government, and I landed on the side of the woman, saying that, hey, look, her religious beliefs is reasonable in the sense that they believe that is showing too much, that is a sign of it's unclean behavior to show your head to a man who isn't your husband and ask the men leave and the women be the one who stay. That is a religious belief they have. And there's all kinds of historical lawsuits that have been made about respecting individuals' religious rights. It becomes a really big problem for the government because the government is the employer, right? Now, if this was a standard employer as well, there's certain protections that have been carved out for religious beliefs as business from even private businesses, right, wrong, or indifferent. You can agree or disagree with those laws. And what I mean by that is some of these laws about who you can or can't fire and the reasons why do raise some questions about First Amendment freedom of association. But putting that to the side, that is the law now. That is what exists now. And so certainly people have their religious freedoms. And if you believe, reasonably so as a Christian, that a man shall not dress as a woman, you will not play into that because it is biblically clear, then you can no longer follow that. And instead of trying to figure this out, Jason Glass made it very clear that he favored the trans kids, transgender, the LGBTQ individuals in this state over the Christian individuals' religious rights in this state. And for that, he said, well, teachers can just leave. That obviously is a big problem, especially in a state like Kentucky, where we are so many very religious people. And like I said, we're at a time where there's already a teaching shortage. Additionally, as well, we all know about the Anderson County principal. I've mentioned it many times, getting fired for refusing to use a student's preferred pronouns, and then hide it from the parents. And we also saw a Jason Glass who issued guidance on how to teach and how you can legally get around Senate Bill 150 so you can teach about homosexuality through K through fifth grade, and the list goes on. And quite clearly, Glass was a very far-left individual. Now, he claims that he is simply leaving because Senate Bill 150 is unconstitutional and he doesn't want to be any part of it. However, he's ignoring the fact that before Senate Bill 150 passed, Jason Glass was already looking for a job. And so he can claim it's about just that law because he wants to get that jab in as he wants to. But really, it was simply because Glass is very far left and he is in a conservative state. And so he's taking off. So the question becomes, how do we fill this position? What's the process for it? Well, Beshear has weighed in on this, and we'll talk about what Beshear had to say right after this.
Lexington Overstock Warehouse is Central Kentucky's best source for stylish new home furnishings. Don't pay retail. With our low overhead operating structure and big name brands, we offer the absolute best values on new furniture for every room. Shop online anytime at LexingtonOverstockWarehouse.com or visit our weekends only showroom located at 156 West Tiverton Way. Right now, for listeners of this show, we're offering a special discount for our online customers. Use coupon code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your online order today. Lexington Overstock Warehouse, low overhead equals really low prices.
So Beshear had some words. This is from LEX 18. They have an article called Kentucky Governor Says Backlash Against Departing Education Chief Makes It Harder to Find Successor. So first, the process here, Jason Glass is leaving at the end of September. And the process for education commissioners. Now, it used to be the school board of education hires a commissioner to a 4-year contract, and that's that. But last year, the state legislature saw fit, just in case, it's probably the only proactive thing I've seen them do in quite some time. That is a smart move. And what they did was they made it to where the commissioner of education gets hired by the board and then confirmed by the Senate. So that way the Senate has to agree. And what they're looking for, what you would love to see, is a politically neutral person, a person who understands that a debate is still going on. See, we know that people like Beshear and others on the left and certainly like to pretend that issues aren't up for debate. They like to pretend like a child changing their gender, that's not up for debate. That's not being debated right now. That's settled science. How could you question that? They like to pretend that giving hormones to children is settled science. Who's questioning this? Are you crazy? If you remember, they did this many a times with COVID issues and a lot of things where they simply jump to, this is settled. There's no discussing it. This is factual. This isn't political. Ignoring the politics that is going on around it, they say this is settled. It's done. So Beshear says that you pushing back against their done and settled science is going to make it harder for them to hire somebody. So now they have to hire an interim commissioner starting September 30th, right? So starting at the end of next month, they have to hire a commissioner that will serve an interim term until the Senate either approves or disapproves of the hiring of this commissioner. And if they disapprove of the hiring, that could create some interesting issues because this isn't super often this happens where you do have a board that appoints somebody to a position and then they have to be approved and confirmed by the Senate. That's not super common in our state. And so it does create some interesting questions about what happens if they say, well, I'm not confirming this person. And the Board of Education says, well, we're not throwing up another pick for you to confirm. And obviously our legislature, they only stay in session for so long. There's some interesting dynamics that would go on and political dynamics that would go on. But Beshear says that Republicans pouncing on Glass because of all of his behavior and then being celebratory that he's leaving after he's had an abysmal time here. I mean, let's not forget masking in schools, the time kids spend out of schools, so on and so forth. And so they're saying, look, we're not going to be able to find somebody with all this backlash going on. What Beshear really means is I'm not going to be able to find a far left commissioner if you guys keep talking about this. If you guys keep going in, keep attacking Glass for who he is and what he's done. And so it's Republicans pouncing. So in this article, he takes a shot at, well, at least in this article, they have a quote from him where he's taking a shot here at Cameron. Beshear says that attacks on Commissioner Glass are based on the politics of the day. And he said this is the governor speaking, try to work through the damage that the attorney general and others have done here and our ability to recruit the very best. Once again, clearly he's talking about the very best far left person he can find. Senator Mike Wilson, member of the state Senate GOP leadership, he had an interesting quote on this. He put out a statement on this. We congratulate Mr. Glass on his new opportunity and wish him well in his future endeavors. In the search for an interim and replacement commissioner, the Kentucky General Assembly encourages Kentucky Department of Education to consider candidates capable of putting their partisan politics aside and focusing solely on the best interest of students, parents, and teachers. The next Kentucky Education Commissioner will inherit historic dysfunction and learning loss within our educational system. It is incumbent upon the next commissioner to initiate a new culture within the department and construct an environment reflective of Kentucky's values. And of course, Mike Wilson here is correct that they should work hard to find somebody who can first worry about what school's main function is. And school's main function isn't to act as some sort of mental health clinic for children. Its not main function is to make sure children belong. Its main function is first and foremost to make sure kids can read, can do math, and are prepared for the world in an academic way. And they have been failing to do so here in Kentucky spectacularly. Children are behind. They don't know how to read and they don't know how to do math. And instead of focusing so much time on whatever political issue of the day, which is what as Beshear calls it. Instead, we should be focusing on something we can all agree on: getting kids to read and do math. That'd be the straightforward and easy thing for us to focus on. But instead, Beshear administration and his attempt to also, he's already complaining about it, so he's clearly going to attempt to bring in a far left person and then attack Republicans when they don't want to see it. And he's going to blame it sorely on the fact that they have politicized the educational system, when in fact it is Beshear and his administration that has weaponized our educational system and has made parents into a enemy. It has made it to where the schools in Kentucky, especially the Kentucky Department of Education, have positioned themselves to be an adversary to parents. That's all we have time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Thank you all for joining us so much, and we will see you next week.